Welcome to The Core. If you're interested in your health, you're in the right place. Stick around for fad-free, no BS tips and education to help you reach your goals. I'm Shannon, a NASM certified personal trainer.
And I am Alini, a certified fat loss and nutrition coach by Precision Nutrition and Clean Health Fitness Institute.
All right, a question that frequently gets asked is, should I eat calories burned during exercise? Let's say you get in a great 30-minute high-intensity workout. You're thinking, I clearly burned 500 calories. My muscles are fatigued. I am feeling so good. So can I eat those calories back? All right, before we dig into this topic with Ailini, we'd love for you to leave a review anywhere you listen to this podcast. A rating on Spotify, or better yet, a review on Apple Podcasts. It's the only way for this podcast to grow, and we would really, really appreciate your support.
All right. Yes, let's dig in. So classic, right? Like you have this like really great workout, you sweat a ton, and you're like, yay, I can eat a whole
all of it
pizza
just
all by myself. So we have this idea that exercise burns a ton of calories. We have this idea that especially when it comes to weight loss, this is, I feel like, because people who want to gain muscle, they know the reason why they need to exercise, but lots of people who are trying to lose fat, they think that they need to exercise because exercise is what's going to lead to fat loss. So there's this, and honestly, I have no idea where this started. I've never been able to figure out where this comes from, like initially what started this, but it's this idea that exercise burns a lot of calories and that, that's the key to fat loss. And at the same time, it's also the idea that, I can eat back all these calories if I'm on a diet. So these are just concepts that really just, they get all jumbled up. So the first thing we need to do is separate these concepts a little bit. So unfortunately, exercise burns a lot less calories than we would like. It burns a lot less than we feel like we're burning. So when you get this really hard workout in, it really doesn't burn as sweaty as you look. Like the sweat and like the drippy hair and the clingy clothes, like it looks like you burned a lot more than you actually did. So all the sweat and all that, that's great. I mean, your body's supposed to sweat. Sweat is important, regulate temperature, et cetera, et cetera. But, sweat and calories are not equated. So,
no, unfortunately.
Wouldn't it be great?
Have you heard or maybe even just read the meme of like, sweat is my calories crying or something like that? Like, oh, if only all the sweat drips coming down with just little calories.
It's calorie tears. I mean, honestly, if that calories would leave my body through laughter, not through crying. So,
Yay,
I'd be like,
that's
yay,
exciting.
they're leaving.
That would be great. Ooh.
Right? Like this idea of the calories are crying to leave my body. I don't want them to be upset. I just want them to go.
Yes.
Anyway, so yes, sweat and calories are not linear. Like it's not you sweat a lot, you burned a lot. That's not how it works. I actually was, okay, this is a total side note. That amazing show, So You Think You Can Dance. Did you ever watch that?
I have watched a few episodes, yeah.
So love the show, but there was this one guy in the show, he did not sweat ever at all. They have footage of him like hours into dancing. He did not sweat. And I can guarantee that he was getting a very good workout in and burning a lot of calories because they dance for hours a day, right, to prepare. So anyway, just, yeah, that came to mind. Well, coming back to what we're talking about.
Here we are.
Exercise doesn't mean that you burn that many calories, and it's actually a lot lower than most people expect. The average person in about 1 hour is going to burn between 100 and 200 calories. That's not a lot. It could be a little less, it could be a little more, but on average, exercise isn't the purpose of exercise isn't to burn calories. Okay, there's the exercise is we do it for many other health reasons, but burning calories, that shouldn't be your driver for that. And this idea that the more I sweat, the more I can eat, that would mean that just sitting at the beach on a hot day, you can eat a ton because you sweat a lot, which also isn't true. So, these things don't really, it doesn't fit. When you actually think about these ideas, they really just don't make sense. And there's this really, really bad concept, in my opinion, that exercise and food are two sides of a scale, kind of like we need to balance these out. I had a great workout, so I deserve food, or I ate too much, so I have to exercise. Like, these things, they shouldn't be trying to balance each other out. Exercise and nutrition serve two very different purposes in your body. I would say they are equally important for your health, but they don't do the same thing. They're not important in the same way. And you have to use them differently depending on the goals you have. And the last point that I want to start with here is that exercise is not the bulk of your metabolism. So many times, especially with people who are trying to lose fat, we have this idea that we're going to work out and that is going to make this massive difference in our overall calorie use. When in fact, people who exercise regularly, only about 10% of the calories that your body burns in a day come from exercise. That's really not a lot. It's really not something that you should be doing thinking that this is what's making the biggest difference. If you really want to make a difference in your metabolism, and this is a spoiler for a different episode, but the biggest things regarding exercise that influence your metabolism is building lean body mass. You want to put some muscle into your frame because that really is going to change your metabolism. And you want to increase your NEAT. Now, also a totally different episode, but your NEAT is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is a fancy way of saying just move more. So when people say, take the stairs instead of the elevator, or instead of the escalator, or park further away, that's the one thing that I don't actually do. I hate parking far away from the door. I'll do all the other ones, but the parking, I'm just like, nope, I park right in front of the door. That's a tangent. That makes a difference in your metabolism. If you stop to think about it, have you ever met someone who fidgets all the time? People who fidget a lot tend to be leaner than people who don't fidget at all, because their body just uses more energy on a day-to-day basis. So formal exercises, that's not the bulk of your metabolism. It's so incredibly important. And I don't want you to hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that exercise isn't important. I'm not saying that you don't have to do it. I'm just saying that we have a disproportionate idea of how many calories we actually burn. So that when you ask, should I eat calories that I burn during exercise? The first thing I want you to do is to change your mindset a little bit. Try to shift from exercise becoming calories that you have like in a bank that you can use, that you can eat, and try to think of exercise as improving your body, improving your mood, increasing your health, improving your metabolism through muscle building, all these other things, but not as a source of dessert calories, especially because I have never heard of someone who said, oh, this is such an intense workout, I deserve an apple. No, it's always, this was such an intense workout, I deserve a pizza, or I deserve a donut, right? Come on, how many people have left like a super hard workout and said, oh, I totally deserve 2 strawberries? Like, that's not how it works. That's
Right.
not how we think about it. So we really need to shift this mentality. Like, you don't exercise to bank dessert calories. You exercise because it matters to your health, because it makes a difference in your longevity, because it makes a difference to your everyday tasks, because it keeps you healthy, because exercising changes how your cells work. That's why
Yeah.
you exercise,
Yes.
not so you can eat dessert.
And if you're on, the beginning stages of trying to change your mindset about all of this, I would say start out with the muscle mass part of it. So you're exercising to create that lean muscle mass, which,
Yes.
as we know, like the more lean muscle we have, the more calories we burn at a resting rate. So just start there. Like if I'm wanting to lose weight or I'm wanting to fit in my jeans better, think of your exercises as, again, gaining that lean muscle mass, burning more calories throughout the day. Not that you can have them in a bank, like you said, or have them in a bank, but I think that's a good mindset for people that are starting out in the beginning stages, because there's a lot of other dynamics that you just listed that can be hard to just change overnight. Like
Yes.
if you've been thinking of exercise as like, I can bank all these calories and have that key lime pie tonight, this is a hard mindset to change. And I've
Yes.
been there when my younger years, when I started exercising in my teens, like younger 20s, it was like, hell yeah, I did. Like I did go for a long bike ride. I will have all that pizza because I
Yeah.
can. I burned it all. And while you shouldn't dismiss the foods that you love out of your diet, and that's what the core is all about, is just finding that balance, but understanding and shifting your mindset slowly.
And it definitely is a process. Like, and I think we say this in most episodes, right? Like, this doesn't happen overnight. You have to have patience. We say one version of some sort of version of this every time, right? Because yes, it's hard. And especially if you've been wired for years or maybe decades to think of exercise as something that you're banking for food, it's really hard to change that and to stop looking at exercise like that. But that's the first thing, is to start working on this. Like, you're not exercising to bank calories for dessert. You're exercising to improve your health and your metabolism, and et cetera, et cetera. And the other thing that you need to do, and this one you might just have to go cold turkey, okay? You need to learn to ignore your apps, your watches, the lists on Google. Ignore the calories burned.
Bum,
Remember,
bum,
I
bum,
just gave an,
bum.
yeah, no. We should have some sound effects.
Oh, how many people just dropped right now?
Yeah, people are like, oh my goodness, but
Oh
my
no,
watch was
not
so
my
expensive.
watch. It
Don't
tells
make
me
me give up my
everything.
watch.
It's like Google, it's always right.
But my fitness pal said that I have 600 extra
Yeah.
calories.
Oh no.
Oh, honey, you don't.
It's okay.
It's
No,
okay.
that
We're
was,
here to hold your hand.
yes,
It's going to be
yes, we're
okay.
here.
So these, apps, and I just gave an example, like, okay, an average person in 1 hour is going to spend 100 to 200 calories. But you guys, it's just an average, and it's not a good one. So when we talk about calories burned, so much goes into how many calories you burn. It starts from what kind of exercise you're doing. It has to do with your body specifically. It has to do with your body composition. So, depending, do you have more muscle, less muscle? Are you taller? Are you shorter? Are your muscles, are your, sorry, not muscles, are your bones heavier or not? Like,
Mhm,
so
mhm.
much goes into how your body specifically burns calories, that any measurement of calories burned that's not done in a controlled lab setting, it's just like a very, range number. It's not specific.
Right. It kind of goes into when you look at the nutrition labels and it will say based on a 2000 calorie diet. I
Yes.
mean, that's just like, it's so generic.
Hmm.
And we are all, like you mentioned, we're all so unique in our own way. And it's just finding out what works for you. And it's a lot of trial and error, and it'll probably be a lot of trial and error for most of your life because we're not getting any younger, we're aging,
Yeah.
we're changing, we're developing. But you know what worked for Karen down the block for her to lose 50 pounds is not going to work for you. What worked for your coworker Tom to gain, a couple pounds of muscle mass and lose 2 inches isn't going to work for you. So just focus on what works for you. And if anything, this is so much easier said than done. Like, have fun with it.
Yeah.
Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the experience of getting to know yourself and, loving yourself with who you are and what you're doing. Little side
And
note.
that's such an important point as well when we think about exercise and food, because when you start looking at exercise as a calorie bank, it takes out like a chunk of the joy in exercise. And a lot of us don't love it that much to begin with. So
Mhm.
it's already not something that you're super crazy about, you're super excited to do, and now you're like trying to calculate how many calories that you burned, and you're trying to eat these calories, but then maybe you're not seeing the results on the scale that you're looking for because you're like, so it's calories burned during exercise is just not a good measurement. Now,
Mhm.
again, you're going to ignore the apps, the watches, the averages, those lists that you can find online of, how many calories does it burn to do what activities. And then there's even some lists that are like, burn more calories during chores. And then they give a list of chores, all sorts of things that you can't trust that. It's just an average. It doesn't take into account anything about you. This is just a number somewhere. When we see like watches or even like your treadmill, your elliptical, all of these are going to tell you how many calories you're burned. They don't know you. This
Right.
is just a system, a calculator that's there based on an average. So what you're going to do is you're going to ignore those numbers, and you're going to work to separate exercise from calories that you can eat. And again, this is harder to do than it is to talk about, but this is a process that both of us have been through. So, at least that here's an example of it can be done. And
Mhm.
the short answer is, should I eat calories burned during exercise? The short answer is no. The long answer is no, you should not. So
Love it. Love it.
it's super hard to remember. And why is it important to stop doing this? First of all, because it gives you freedom. You have more freedom to exercise and to eat according to your goals without adding more numbers to the mix, without adding this extra stressor. The other thing is that you will see more progress because calories burned are so incredibly difficult to calculate. And because exercise is just about 10% of what your body is burning anyway, you're going to see more progress if you just ignore this. So
Mhm.
if your goal is to lose fat, you're not going to use exercise as extra calories to put into your eating budget. You're just going to go for your goal without factoring this in. If your goal is to build muscle, then you have to eat more than you would expect anyway. The average person doesn't really tend to understand that if you're trying to build muscle, there's a bulking that has to happen that has a
Mhm.
lot to do with food. You're not just going to eat back whatever you burned, but you're going to eat more than that. So how much you burned really doesn't matter. In this case, it really doesn't make a difference because you're going to eat out of surplus anyway. And if you're trying to maintain, you don't want this unknown number. You don't want this uncertainty. You want to work with something that you know, because again, once you're exercising consistently, that number is kind of going to stay the same. It's going to even out, and you're going to work out like how much you need to eat for what your body does. So you're going to have more freedom, you're going to see better progress, and you're going to have better results because you're not working with something that is completely unknown. Again, unless you have access to a lab where you can really measure how many calories you're using during exercise, this is really information that is of absolutely no use to you. So ignore that. I mean, our watches are great for so many things. not for telling you how many calories you burn. Your treadmill, your elliptical, your bike, all great tools to have, not for how many calories you burn. And definitely the internet is not a reliable place to give you a list of how much your body burns during any given workout.
Yes,
So
they're all machines.
it's just calculations. It's just numbers that don't really take into account. There are lots of calculations that we do, like how many calories should I eat and what's my metabolic rate. All of these are calculations that we do based on estimates, but these kinds of calculations take into account a lot of your specific information.
Exactly.
Calories burned don't account for your specific information. So it's really not worth it. So should I eat calories burned during exercise? Nope. Ignore that. Just find joy in exercise without the reward for working out so hard. And good for you that you're pushing yourself and working out hard. Just don't try to reward yourself with food. Thank you for joining us for this episode. We would greatly appreciate it if you left a review wherever you listen to this podcast. Remember that you can join our email list at practicethecore.com for more tips on how to improve your health. We are Aline and Shannon, and this is The Core.